your battleship. Are you ready?
Well met again everyone, Briareus Kerensky here for the review of Ketsui Kizuna Jigotachi Extra. As with my Dodonpachi Saidai Oju review, I will be using different wallpapers to indicate the mode currently shown. This is for the arcade mode, while this one is for X mode. Ready? Let's start! This port of Ketsui marks the return of Cave to Sony consoles after Ibarra in 2006 for the PS2, although Ketsui is published by 5PB Games and not directly by Cave. Ketsui isn't exactly their latest game either, being introduced to arcade audiences in 2002. In fact, Arika, that ported other Cave games to the PS2, expressed interest in adapting Ketsui to the PS2, but later abandoned the project due to technical problems. Fast forward to 2008, and 5PB Games get the rights for Dodonpachi Daiojo and Ketsui. With the help of Arika, 5PB is finally able to release Ketsui to Japanese audiences in 2010 for the Xbox 360. And now, in 2013, 5PB ports the X360 version to the PS3. Confusing enough? Good. Bottom line is that the X360 and PS3 versions are identical, and this is both a good and a bad thing. The good is that arcade mode is very faithful to its original counterpart. X mode is a fun variation from arcade. There is a good host of configuration options. Online leaderboards. There is a large gallery, almost 200 images, fully unlocked from the start. It's possible to select the smoothing method among different filters instead of just on or off. And advanced config options are unlocked the more you play. The bad is that the game isn't as rich as other shoot-em-up ports. When compared to Kane's own ports of 2010, Ketsui only offers 2 modes, and when compared to Dodonpachi Saidai Oju, or even quote-unquote lesser games like Eschatos, this extra edition feels rather poor. Of course, this doesn't detract anything from the game itself, which is among Cave's greatest. The player can select between 2 helicopters, which have different movement speeds and fire spreads. As usual, there is an auto shot and a laser shot available to both ships, along with bombs. Unlike most recent shooters, Ketsui offers power-up bonuses that will equip the player's helicopter with up to 4 drones, each increasing the spread of the auto shot. When using lasers, the drones will lock onto enemies and will allow the player to move around while the drones constantly fire at that enemy. The bomb, which is more a pair of rockets fired from the helicopter, will home in on the locked enemies. The laser shot doesn't travel the full length of the screen, but this ties in Ketsui's scoring system, a much more straightforward approach than the Dodonpachi series. The system was designed by Cave to be more accessible by newcomers than Dodonpachi Daiojo, which was considered more obscure.
Approach your target and attack! Your mission starts now! Are you ready?
Killed enemies will drop a chip, numbered 1 to 5, based on how close the enemy was. Get a chip higher than 1, and every enemy killed with a laser shot within 1 second will drop a chip of the same value, regardless of your position. Destroying enemies will increase the time available to collect chips, but the focus is to get the highest chip by getting as close as possible with one enemy and then use the laser shot to keep chips flowing. Once the timer runs out, repeat the process. The total value of collected chips will go toward a multiplier that will decrease every time the laser shot is used. This multiplier will also tick down when bosses show up, forcing player to kill them as fast as possible. While less strict than Dodonpachi, the scoring system in Ketsui still requires a lot of knowledge about enemy placement, but it has less variables and is more forgiving, especially upon death, as the multiplier won't reset completely. Speaking of deaths, Ketsui doesn't pull any punches, even among cave shooters. Going straight for high scores during the first credits will make the experience frustrating, as projectiles tend to be small and fast, delivered right away in large quantities. The system promotes getting close to enemies, so reaction times are limited, though all enemies give a window of opportunity after becoming fully visible. There is no sudden difficulty spike, but during the second level things get hectic, and Ketsui never lets go. Maybe there aren't as many projectiles as in other cave shooters, but their patterns are faster and often with less space between bullets. The scoring system promotes knowledge of enemy positioning, but survival requires to know how enemies attack and be always a step or two ahead of the incoming pattern and use auto and laser shots at their best. The power-ups are probably the most out-of-place part of the whole system, as maximum firepower is acquired fairly soon and enough items are released upon death to get you going without being penalized too much. Ketsui has 2 second loops, depending on several factors. The Omote or Tsujo loop will start if no continues have been used and the sum of lives lost and bombs fired is less than 6. This loop will add suicide bullets to enemies if not killed at point-blank range. Get more than 120 million points with no deaths and bombs used to start the Ura loop, where enemies fire double the amount of projectiles and release suicide bullets. After the 5th boss, a Buccaneer Doom will make its appearance as the game's true final boss. X-Mode is not as different as Black Labels or console modes of other cave home ports. Small enemies do not drop chips, unless a specific enemy is destroyed. Such enemies are clearly marked in a shade of pink and a large lock icon. The timer is lower, thus allowing for easier chains. Some bullets from medium enemies can be destroyed by the laser shot, but if one of the pink enemies is destroyed, those bullets will release chips too. Other mechanics remain the same, and bullet patterns don't change much from arcade mode, except for destroyable bullets. X-Mode is the only alternate mode in this extra edition, and this leads toward my only real complaint toward Ketsui Kizuna Jigotachi Extra, which is not about the game itself, but rather this edition. Ketsui hasn't been handled directly by Cave, and this is very obvious. 5PB Games did a good job with the arcade-to-console conversion and loading times, but didn't go the extra mile to make this edition on par with Cave's own ports. The home port of Ketsui is a good one, which itself is quite a feat, but nothing more. The music in Ketsui is provided by Manabu Namiki, just like many other Cave games. It distinctly sounds like a Cave game, but it's more on the rock side of things than the usual electro-techno style, and this suits well the grittier graphics of the game, and my tastes. Enemies in Ketsui are modern military vehicles and installations, some of them having a real direct war counterpart, which I particularly like. This style is more akin to old Cave productions like Pro Gear or even Ibarra, and it's highly detailed in its pixelated glory. I said pixelated because Ketsui hasn't got the same upscale graphics as other games directly ported by Cave, and must rely on filters to smooth its rough edges. I personally prefer the nearest neighbor variant, as other filters tend to blur things a bit too much. Years do wait on Ketsui's graphics though, and while each stage has its own distinct personality, they aren't as diverse as in other Cave shooters. Level 3, a dock bathed in a bright red sunset, is the graphical highlight of the game, and it's unfortunate that other levels do not quite reach this level of presentation. Boss and mid-boss designs, however, are wonderful for those who like real science fiction. More than other bullet hells, Ketsui has an initial bump that might discourage players, but once past it, the straightforward yet complex scoring system will provide a lot of incentives to come back. The real problem lies in the package, barebone compared to Cave's own old and recent ports, but what really matters is that the Arcade 2 console translation is well executed. I hope you have enjoyed this review and you'll stick around for more. Briareos Kerensky, over and out.